It's a framework that I've developed based on principles, processes, and tools I've developed over my lifetime. And it just kind of revolves around but with Ethereum, it was much different. This was now taking it beyond the financial ecosystem into pretty much any other space that has intermediary layers that you can then create contracts that individuals can create amongst themselves that can be trustworthy and transparent and can execute as they're supposed to without without kind of humans getting in the way. And the idea of inefficiencies, how they can be removed in areas of law, in areas of pretty much any business model, again, relies on these third parties that usually have centralized authority to do things. But more and more, these empowering individuals and creators to develop code that can execute goes well beyond finance. And that's where I saw was the kind of the light that went off when Vitalik showed this was Bitcoin is great for what it does. It enables you to send and receive something, but you can't kind of put in a if this, then that, and then if this happens, do this. And that was really the game-changing aspect that people started to realize that Ethereum had the opportunity to create really valuable change in many, many different other sectors, not just in finance. And that's really what got me excited. It's what when I brought Charles Hoskinson in to show him the paper there and got him on board for the project. This is Charles that runs Cardano, and a few others. When we got all together, we realized very soon after, because of the amount of attention it was getting, that this was something that could be really big. And we ended up spending the next year carrying it out, doing the crowd sale, and then over the next year building out the product and launching it in 2015.
Walk me through how you left what you were working on with Ethereum and Decentral, and then what you wanted to focus on going forward, because I know that you're working on a new project now, and I think it's actually very interesting, and it totally syncs up with like what your vision and your mission is. So walk me through that process and what we're doing like
Sure.
right now.
So I left Ethereum in 2015. I was one of the initial funders. We had also Joseph Lubin, who runs a company called Consensus, an organization. We funded the operations of it until the crowd sale, and then the money came in for the crowd sale. It kind of came down to the developers carrying out the mission. And there was a little bit of friction back in the day. There was 8 founders at that time. It was difficult to get decisions made, and what happened was kind of the developer team. It was about them carrying things out, and they kind of took things by the reins and worked towards getting the product out. And Charles ended up leaving the project, and Amir, one of the other founders, and then over time, Joseph and myself also knew that the writing was on the wall there. But it's generally because it makes me happy to see other people happy. So the idea of what is it I want to do is to serve. Why I want to do it is because it makes me happy. And then how do I do it is something I call perfect formula. It's a general framework that I came up to solve problems. It's a general problem-solving formula that runs around the basis of creating winning situations for as many stakeholders as you can possibly imagine in what it is you're doing. It's a framework that I've developed based on principles, processes, and tools I've developed over my lifetime. And it just kind of revolves around, you have a problem or there's something that you want to achieve. And I take a framework through it where I say, okay, what is the problem you're trying to do? Who are your stakeholders? And by stakeholders, I mean anybody that you could potentially have in the mix that could provide value to you in what you're trying to do. Something where you're trying to create movements of people all aligned towards common interests and common goals, so that people realize by joining you on what you're doing, their life gets better. So I spent time putting together this framework that kind of is how I've run my businesses in the past, and I ended up coming up with something that I think is pretty powerful and something that I think I can utilize as a problem solver. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my framework is bring to the table that there are better ways to have business models. There's better ways to do things that don't necessarily rely on advertising models, which create, in my opinion, a lot of misinformation and people that are taken down these paths because advertisers are paying money to get eyeballs on something, which leads to this attention economy that we have and the amount of screen time that's out there, and even models that collect user information and then are allowing that information somehow to get exposed, and people aren't in control of their stuff. So I think there's a big deficiency in business models, which usually stem from having to return money to investors and people having to squeeze things that eventually lead to problems and lead to a situation where like we've had with Facebook, governments questioning, hey, your business models are leading to these problems here, and it's not good. And why are you doing it this well? It's like, well, that's all we've
That's
really
status
known.
quo. That's what everyone does.
That's the status quo, and we haven't thought differently. It's the lack of foresight that I've seen with some of the biggest companies in the world that haven't realized maybe it's not a good thing to collect user information and use that as a monetary aspect, or maybe it's not a good idea to have this type of advertising model, which is leading to fake news and leading to misinformation being spread. And if we had thought a little bit differently on how to do what it is we're doing, and maybe thought ahead of the curve, which so many people in the crypto space do, maybe we'd been in a better position and don't find us in the situation we're in right now. So that's kind of, I still believe there's hope. I still believe that change can happen. I think it's about having discussions and seeing how change can happen by talking to problem solvers and putting it on the right direction, and speaking with people that are not being maybe dismissive about what they've done, but if they want to learn and want to get on the right track and want to see where the future is heading, speak to some technologists that have seen it before and have understood for years, like I and others have been 10 years in the space so far, in the crypto space, and seeing it right away in 2012 for me, and those that even did it earlier, that this is something that's going to be very powerful, more powerful than the internet, and encouraging those company leaders to look at things differently, and look to see how they can do things that are providing more value for more people in the world, and not just themselves, or how they can do it to bring others along. Because the more you're helping other people, the more they'll help you.
Yeah.
Is the way that I look at it. The more you're serving others, the more they're going to join you, because their lives are getting better by them joining you on your mission. And that's how I think movements are. I'm not really in social media very much. For me, I learned that you can get really lost in those things.
Yes, you
it's
can.
not my mission right now. Once I start putting my frameworks, I've got some papers coming out on the frameworks that I'm going to be getting out there. Anything I ever do on social media, it's got to have a positive thing for me. It's not about promoting something. It's not about Twitter is something that I used to use a lot, and I'll still check it every once in a while, but generally I've shut off any notification stuff for social media for me.